Doing gets it done. Brought to you by Wells Fargo Bank, the bank of doing.
The age of 3, this is when we first start putting together the equation of money and value.
What are the parts of my money story that I think are valuable to pass on to my kids? What were the messages that were sent by your mother, your father, your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, significant caregivers? And how do you think it affects your financial communication today?
The biggest thing that parents can do to help their children make better financial decisions in the future is talking to them about their personal financial decisions now in the present.
Our early experiences in our family system and directly around money have a profound impact on our beliefs around money, and our beliefs around money predict our financial outcomes. If you grew up poor, money is something that's scary, not having money is scary. The problem is that as you grow older, maybe you do have money, but you still have that fear. You still have that anxiety because you can't shake that belief. There'll never be enough money.
On the other side, folks who might be really affluent and privileged, they might think money can solve every problem, but not build up mental toughness or withstand things that sometimes money can't solve.
And so children are being constantly exposed to the attitudes, the mindsets, and the behaviors of their parents and other loved ones around them and their relationship around money.
It's extremely important that kids are taught these concepts from an early age. And having said that, there's no real bad time to start. So just because your child is 9 years old and you've never had a discussion with them about financial education doesn't mean you should just give up. It's always appropriate to have those types of conversations with your kids. It can start off something as simple as allowance and savings, showing them that there's value for certain work that they do, chores around the house, and emphasizing how they utilize that money and introducing the concept of savings and why that is important. Also extremely important to help them understand the difference between things that they need versus things that they want, so that they can begin to capture that understanding of how they need to prioritize their spending. Well, part of this, I think, is moving beyond that basic education. Having the ability to take those core concepts and really apply them to the types of decisions that our kids are going to have to make as they get older and as they become adults. And that's often, it's in that additional part that we miss the mark, I think, in many cases, because it does start to introduce some more complex issues, and often it's not really top of mind. We're more focused on other things, and so we have to consistently reinforce the basic concepts as we teach some of the newer concepts as well. So if allowance just becomes something that I do because I expect to have some reward for my work, well, it's losing that other part, which is how you prioritize your spending, how you look at planning ahead and being able to save for larger purchases as opposed to just buying it now. And we live in a culture where not only do we want it now, but we can get it now. And so it's extremely important that our kids understand these concepts as it applies to even decisions they're going to be making in everyday life as they're in elementary school, because things are going to be put in front of them that they're going to want now. And that difference between wanting and needing is an important concept that has to be continually reinforced. In order to teach the discipline aspects of financial education, it's important that we have our children doing it as part of their everyday practice. And we want them to also be able to recognize the rewards for having that discipline, if they can see that. So let's take a child that's paid an allowance of $5 to do a simple chore. If we teach them to set aside a portion of that, then maybe we reward them like in the form of interest, right? So that perhaps when they go to actually spend that money, there's a little bit more that's been added as a reward for them to be doing that type of activity that we want to encourage. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is looking at goal setting, very simple goal setting. You know, you want to have X amount of dollars in your account when we get to Christmas time. So planning through the year, setting aside money through the year with a specific goal, and make it a long-term goal with near-term goals so that they can feel that accomplishment and reward as they're moving towards the longer goal. All of those are things that we can insert from a discipline standpoint that helps the child understand that the benefits of the decisions they're making today will reward them tomorrow.
My mother gave me some money to go buy milk. It was the good old days when you could go buy milk when you were a kid unsupervised. And so I ran off with my friend. We got the milk, and I can remember there was a nickel change. And when I got home, I gave my mother the milk, but I did not give her the nickel. And of course I got in trouble. What I walked away with was my love of money is shameful, that there's something wrong with my desire to hang on to this nickel that is not okay. And so as an adult, what is interesting is I've always been good at managing the money, making money, but my love of money, my desire as an entrepreneur to be profitable, actually I had to work through some of that shame and that discomfort, I think because I was sent the message that it's not okay, Kathleen, that you loved money so much that you want to keep it.
So I think I associated not having money with pain and anxiety and family strife. My mom likes to say, we were middle class except lower. And I'm like, yeah, Mom, they got words for that. In my understanding my own financial psychology, I went home and I interviewed my mother. I didn't understand why she was so afraid to invest. And then she told me this story about my grandfather, which all of a sudden made my crazy relationship with money make perfect sense. My grandfather went to the bank one day and his money was gone. It was the Great Depression. The banks closed. He never put a dollar in the bank the rest of his life. He died in his 90s, keeping his money in a lockbox. So understanding that family pattern, it really gave me compassion for my grandfather and my mother, because of course my mom's anxious about money. She's too anxious to invest. She was raised by a guy who wouldn't even put money in the bank. So we have these conclusions we walk away with around money. Rich people are greedy, or money corrupts, or you can never have enough money, or there's virtue in having less money. These are all beliefs that we've studied that get inherited and emerge from our experiences around money.
In order to teach kids the concept of banking, there's a few things that I would look at doing. First of all, take them to your bank. Open up an account. You can open an account as a legal guardian for the benefit of that child. You will then be able to show them the concepts. Let them see that money transfer from their hands into the hands of the teller, and experience exactly what that is like in terms of the bank. I remember as a small child going into a local bank with my father and having an account set up and wanting to see when they took that $20, I wanted to see where they were going to hold that $20 so I knew it would be there when I come back, right? So it's an experiencing, and as part of that understanding. Today, with the benefits of online banking, you can show the child that account at any time. When I was a kid, it was a monthly statement. And so when that statement would come, my father would pull it out and show, look, here's the activity. Here's where you put the money in your account. This is your money that you can draw on at any time. Today, you can do that online. Pull up a phone, show them where their money is in their account so they get that reward.
So what can we do to help our children learn better money habits and perhaps even reconcile what was passed down to us?
The first is the earlier you start, the better off. So start early and talk about money often.
Let your child digest what it is that you're talking about money. Be sure that you don't push all the details of your financial experience on them.
And so the collection of all these money messages that we receive as we are growing up is called your money story. Pick those lessons that you want to pass down to the next generation, like passing on a legacy. So for a 5-year-old, it might be, this is a quarter, this is a dime, this is a dollar, and then, showing them how to make change. And as someone progresses, then you start to increase those lessons in terms of, somebody gets their first job. How do you negotiate a salary? How do you read a paycheck? So it's these educational moments that happen over time.
If you think that you are very financially well off and so your children are fine, they don't need to hear or you don't need to talk about money, take a step back and think about your parents and your parents' parents and your parents' parents' parents, so that you can be clear that you're only benefiting your child by having these money conversations and experiences with them.
For me, having the financial education opportunities that I had with my family was extremely helpful as I moved into a career setting. And it actually ended up in a career in banking. I never intended to have a career in banking, but I believe it's because I had such strong foundational knowledge in financial education, which I pretty much got at home, not in the school. But having that foundation equipped me to be able to go into the banking industry and allowed me to continue to advance. It helped me in understanding the important role that banks play in our economy and how critical they are to the overall success of our communities. And I have now taken what I learned through a 40-year career in banking to apply at the Orange County Business Council, understanding the significance of the banking industry, of financial services in general, as we pursue the different opportunities for economic development that we would like to see throughout all regions of Orange County. And that is what drives my passion for financial education, because I want kids today to have that same opportunity I had, to have that foundational understanding of the basics that can help them whether they choose to be in banking or whether business that always seem to tie back to the financial side of things. Most of our banks today and credit unions have wonderful applications that you can go to on the website. Applications that will help them with budgeting, applications that will help them in how they prioritize their spending, having a savings plan, the goal setting. I highly encourage parents to look at those tools and make sure that they show them to their children and help educate their children on how to use them. The banks and credit unions are proud to have those there, and they have them there for a reason. The banks and credit unions benefit, as we all do, from having better financial education at an early age. And that's why it's there, and that's why I highly encourage that they utilize those resources. I think it's important for financial education of our children because this is our next generation of leaders. We want them to be properly equipped. There is no bad time to start teaching them, even if it's a teenager that's begun making mistakes with their financial management, helping them experience those lessons, understand this basis, to go out, to seek the help, to seek the information so that they can make the right decisions for themselves. All of this is extremely important in developing that next responsible generation so that we know that we have a strong economic base with solid contributors that are going to make for a higher quality living throughout our communities.
When we tell people, hey, did you know that giving to other people can make you happy? Most people are not blown away. They understand, they've had experiences that make them happy, they understand the concept, but it doesn't occur to us that often to give instead of getting stuff for ourselves. And so it has to be a habit of mind that we encourage ourselves to give more often than we do. That feeling of having done something that counts in the world is one of the key predictors of why giving can pay off in more happiness.
We know generosity can be rewarding, but what's really happening when we give time or money to others?
We help someone, we get a feeling of elation. It's basically nature's way of rewarding us. Kind of like the feeling we get when we run and we feel good, we feel happy. It's the same for when we help others.
Science has shown that our brain releases rewarding chemicals when we exercise. But can the same be true for simply giving? In 2006, Jorge Moll and Jordan Grafman, both neuroscientists at National Institutes of Health, developed an experiment to measure our neural activity when we give.
Grafman and Moll's experiments in the 2000s provide the very first evidence that the joy of giving has biological basis in the brain.
Subjects were given a pool of money they were allowed to keep. A computer then gave them a series of causes that they could either donate to or keep the money instead. As they made their decisions, their brain activity was recorded by fMRI.
Turns out there are two reward centers of the brain that light up when people give. And these are the pleasure centers of the brain. These areas are called the midbrain VTA, as well as the subgenual area. The same parts of the brain that light up when there's food or when we think of romantic partners. These experiments suggest for the first time we have evidence of the biological basis of the joy of giving.
When we think about who is a philanthropist and how philanthropy works, what's truly important is to just think of it as someone helping somebody else. You're helping somebody else, whether that's through giving, right? So money, maybe you're giving money, maybe you're giving some of your assets, could be appreciated stock, could be real estate. It could be anything you're giving. Perhaps you're donating your old clothes that you don't wear anymore, cleaning out your closet, donating that to a charity. That's one of the things I like to do. There's an organization in my city that supports women and girls who have gone through trafficking. And part of the way they do it is they have a thrift store that's all volunteer. And so when I am cleaning out my house or just want to do some cleaning, you can donate to them. That's philanthropy. We got to reframe what philanthropy is. And we got to think of it in ways that you do to give your time, treasure, which people still do, that's the cash or assets, your ties, your testimony. Perhaps you serve on a nonprofit board. That's all philanthropy. We're all giving to help make this world a better place. And one of the other things that's really important when it comes to philanthropy, and today what we're seeing is people want it to be meaningful and they want to know that it's having an impact. And so when we think about philanthropy and how we give and what we give and what's most important to us, the most common thing I see in working with our clients is that it's something tied to them personally, something that they or someone in their family member has experienced that they want to give back to. They want to help somebody else. They got a hand up and they want to provide that hand up to somebody else now that they have been through it. How much do you decide to give to philanthropy? That's a good question because it's going to vary. It's going to vary by how much access you have and the cause you're supporting, how important it is to you. We have some people, I've seen some people who give just out of their excess, and that's okay. So one of the things I like to say about philanthropy, when you're giving voluntarily of your own money, there's no right or wrong way to do it. So if it's a smaller amount out of your excess that you're donating, maybe it's the red bucket during the holidays and you're putting in, $1, $5, whatever it is, $20, that all helps. It all helps support the causes. Or if it's a cause that's really important to you and it's more of a stretch philanthropy, maybe there's some sacrifice you're making. Maybe you're not going out for the cup of coffee or you miss a few meals out to be able to give a little bit more to support the cause that you want to really see advance, or it's medical research, or perhaps it's one of the charities local that I've seen in my community is supporting parents whose children are suffering with childhood cancer. And they provide them with gift cards or baskets or other things that they just know is needed during those difficult times. So there's no right or wrong to the amount you're giving. It's really what's comfortable for you. And that's where it's important to understand your finances and understand, what are your must cover. You need to eat, you need to have a place to live, you need to get to work. Those are the musts. And then what might you have that's excess, or sometimes, like I said, if you really want to save for a larger gift, that you make that possible, but really considering your total financial picture and then what might be there and available to give to one or more charities that you want to support.
This is keeping me from having to move. I'm able to live in my home for as long as I need to. I have a son and a daughter. They both use wheelchairs. Okay, so my son, he comes over every weekend, and it's been really a hassle trying to get him in the house and back out of the house. He has to get out of his chair. Is currently putting in a ramp in the front of my home. This way, the only thing he needs is somebody to hold the door for him, and he can actually go right on in.
Everyone in the world ought to have a place to call home, a place to live, a place that they feel is sufficient for them.
So it has made a difference, and it will continue to make a difference.
That people want to know, okay, I'm giving this money or my assets to charity, what is it doing? Is it solving homelessness? Is it solving hunger? Is it getting more access to medical care? Whatever that important cause, is there some change that's happening? People are no longer just giving to give for the most part. They want to know, am I making a difference? And because of that, they're looking to the charities to provide more data, more reporting of what is the work you've done? Did you house 100 people? Did you get 100 people fed? Like, what are those results? And so because of that, charities have had to adapt a bit to understand, and particularly as millennials come into the power of controlling that wealth that they're inheriting and generating for themselves, charities are adjusting to have to figure out, okay, well, what is it that we can tell that we're doing, and are we doing what we should be doing? Philanthropy is not just for those who are the Bill and Melinda Gates of the world or the Zuckerbergs. It really is anybody. And if you look at giving by capacity, those who don't have as much, oftentimes we find they give more out of what they have than those who have a lot. It makes it important when you consider philanthropy that it's just not writing a big check or giving large sums of money. All of the little items that we think of, those matter too, whether it's donating to the thrift store or whether it's giving the few dollars that you have excess to support the organization that you want to. Collectively, it adds up. And when you consider fundraising in general that organizations do, there's a pyramid. And so there will be some at the top who are going to give large amounts. But as you work your way down the pyramid, it's a larger block down there. And those are the ones that are giving smaller amounts, but collectively, it adds up. And it fills in that pyramid of giving to support an organization that you want to support.
I grew up in a Habitat home, and I had great memories there. So I felt amazing when I received the news of getting a home, because I know that all my hard work is finally paying off. You have to do 125 hours in the restore. The 125 hours goes towards your hours for you to pick your lot.
1, 2, 3.
Yep. I'm overwhelmed today because I see it's a house now, and not just grass, not just dirt. I rode by here last week and none of the walls were put up. Literally, it was just the foundation now. My 17-year-old, she's tired of sharing a room with her sisters, and she's older. So it's like she wants her own space, and I'm excited for her to have that. I'm excited for all my kids to have their own space. And I know our lives, it basically is only up from here. So I feel blessed.
So what influences someone's philanthropy? Well, oftentimes what I see, it's that personal experience that they've had where they've gotten help. They've gotten some sort of help and they say, you know what, I wouldn't have made it through that but for this help that somebody gave me, whether it's an organization, whether it was a stranger, a friend, a family member. And they say, you know what, I would really like to pay that back. I would really like to give that experience, that help to somebody else. And so oftentimes philanthropy, what is most, where I say hits the heartstrings, is something that has been personal. Another thing that's important about philanthropy is that it's going to be different to everybody. It's going to be as unique as your own fingerprint. And that's important. And it's also important, I always say, if you're giving out of your own goodness, out of your own heart, there's no right or wrong way to do philanthropy. It's doing something to help others, and that's what's most important.
Where should I give? Should I give to a charity? Should I give to a close friend or a family member or someone on the street who's in need? The short answer is all of them are good. So any kind of giving that you do, again, is going to be better than spending on yourself. What about time? Should we be giving time to other people? The research suggests that giving time does in fact make us happier. The issue is that it's much, much harder to do. If we say go volunteer, we get huge drop off because people have lives, they're busy. My hunch is that when you give time, it is more impactful on you. The issue is that there's a bigger barrier, so if you can't give time, at least you could give money so that you're being generous with at least one of your resources.
So when you give, it's not just the good feelings when you give to charity, but there's also some financial benefits. And of course, you'll want to check with your own tax advisor, but for the most part, we know that when you give to charity, you can get a tax deduction. Now that will depend on whether you take the standard deduction or the itemized deduction, but if you take the itemized deduction, you'll want to keep your receipts because you do get a tax deduction that helps to offset the income taxes that you would generally pay. Not only that, but a big trend right now is giving appreciated assets. So appreciated publicly traded stock. Maybe it's a business interest that you own, or maybe it's real estate. Those assets you can give to charity if the charity is willing to accept them. And not only do you get the tax deduction for the gift, but you also, any of the gain that is built in, so essentially gain being the difference between what you paid for the asset and what it would be worth today when you're going to gift it to charity. Normally, if you sell it, you pay taxes on that difference. But when you give it to charity, you don't pay taxes, and the charity gets that asset at the fair value. So the charity can sell it because it's tax exempt and have a larger amount to use for its charitable purposes. And you get the tax deduction on top of that.